bring out Andrew. He's a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, author of The War on Normal People, The Truth About America's Disappearing Jobs and Why Universal Basic Income is Our Future. Andrew Yang. Andrew, now wait a second. Wait a second. Thank you. I saw as you were coming out, you were doing this. Is that a shot at Biden and Bernie that, you know, you can, come on, it's a subtle way of reminding everyone let's sit.
Your audience can tell you he keeps the studio a little bit chilly, am I right?
Oh, okay. That's it. Well, listen, I missed you at the debate.
You weren't the only one.
I did. I think, you know, you have a different voice and a voice that needs to be heard. One thing I like about your voice, you're the least Trump-obsessed of all the candidates. Let me read your quote. You said, if you turn on cable network news today, you would think he's our president because of some combination of Russia, racism, Facebook, Hillary, and emails. Some of that is true, but you're saying it's other things, and I would agree.
Yeah, I'm heading from here to Iowa, and we blasted away 40,000 manufacturing jobs in that state. And when you go to those towns, after the mill closed, the shopping center closed, people started to leave, the school shrank, and it's never recovered. And that's the story that's played out in Ohio, Michigan, Western Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's why Trump won all of those key states. And what we did to those manufacturing jobs, we're now doing to retail jobs, call center jobs. 30% of America's malls and stores are closing because Amazon is closing them, and Amazon is paying zero in taxes. So these are the problems that people in Iowa feel every single day. And when I talk to voters, they do not obsess about impeachment the same way the folks in the media do.
Right. America still makes stuff. It's just that it's robots doing it. I think I read in your article something like 88% of factory jobs that were lost from 2000 to 2010 were lost to automation. Yeah. That's the issue for you, right?
Yeah, when you go to a factory in the Midwest, you don't see wall-to-wall immigrants. You see wall-to-wall machines and robot arms. Yeah. And that's just speeding up. To the extent that you do need more manufacturing workers, which you do, they tend to be educated technicians, people who are good on laptops and not hammering things into place. And in our country, only 33% of Americans are going to graduate from college. We're essentially a nation of high school graduates, and those opportunities are not keeping pace.
So the other thing I like about you is that you are also the least identity politics obsessed, I feel. Now, I don't see color. My staff tells me you're Asian.
Yes. You know, well, early on in my campaign, some people told me that an Asian couldn't win the White House. And those people were my parents.
Is that true?
No, my parents never even dreamt about me running. It wasn't even like, you can't be president. It was like, you know.
You should be president.
Well, they weren't excited initially.
Really?
Because Asian Americans don't really think about politics as a natural arena for us, honestly. Sure. But hopefully I'm changing that.
You are changing that, yes. Yes. And I also love it that you make jokes. But some Asians don't like that. You get pushback. But they're like jokes about being good at math. They're positive. Yes. It's like being kidded about having a big dick, you know. Ooh. How dare you? Now everyone's gonna know, you know?
Well, math is an acronym. It stands for Make America Think Harder, which is what we need to do.
Yeah, you do.
You gotta get good at math.
So let me ask you about the China deal, not because you're Asian. No, really.
Really?
Because it was a big part of the week. You know, we obsess about all these other things. This is, again, I like your criticism of the media. You say, you know, I always criticize Fox News all those years, and still do, because they just don't report the news that they don't want their people to hear about.
Yeah.
I feel the left is getting that way too. Now, we did finally sign a trade deal with China. What do you think of it? What's your take on it?
Well, the details haven't come out from this phase one. I talked to a producer here in the U.S., and they said that what's been signed does not actually protect them or address their concerns at all. It's more about not slapping additional tariffs on imports that were coming into the country. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm much more concerned about our exporters and producers, people like farmers in Iowa, than I am about the Chinese producers. So to me, we don't know what's in this until we get some more information and details.
What about the technology stealing? Do you know about that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, the technology stealing is one thing, but it's actually...
Is that in there? Did we really get it?
It's not clear. It's not clear. We don't have details, but I think the issue is it's not facing what the future is, which is China is actually very innovative and is starting to manufacture all kinds of things, including those robots. Those are immigrant robots in those factories.
How come I keep reading that the Democrats are getting their ass kicked on the technological front as far as social media, as far as ads? I remember in 2000, was it 12? Obama, their campaign was so technologically ahead, and Peggy Noonan said, I think we're going to win because I see so many yard signs. And they were like, yard signs? We're on the computer, lady. And somehow now...
It's not somehow. The Republicans were using this very early on. I remember Ralph Reed using it great effect many, like 10 years ago. And it's because before Fox News, most of the conservatives were zeroed out in mainstream media. And so they started to use digital tools rather adeptly. And now they use them in lots of ways. And they're sort of aided, of course, as Andrew knows, by Facebook and others in terms of these tools and the ability to micro-target. And they've gotten very good at it. And the Democrats have just lagged.
I thought the liberals owned Silicon Valley.
No.
I thought we were the ones who were good at this shit. The Republicans were supposed to be the old man who said, talked about the machine when they were talking about a tape recorder.
Oh, if you want us to leapfrog the Republicans again, I should be your nominee, because I guarantee you, as your nominee, we'd be better at technology than the Republicans come the fall.
Yeah.
You personally could make that happen?
Sure.
Wow.
That's true.
That's a big promise. And a lot of catching up to do, apparently.
Yeah, you know what happened in 2016 is the Republicans did get very, very good. And then at the time, Facebook went to the Clinton campaign and said, hey, you want some help? And the Clinton campaign said, nah, we got it.
All right.
And that was not the right answer. I
have an important question for you. If you are the nominee, you win. You win the vote. You are President-elect Yang.
Yes.
And
I like
Donald,
the sound of that.
Yeah. Sitting up.
Well, wait till you hear what I have to say.
Uh-oh.
You don't really think Donald Trump is going to concede to you, do you? Let me read a few quotes, and then you can answer this.
Sure.
Roger Stone, a couple of years ago, try to impeach him. Just try it. You will have a spasm of violence in this country, an insurrection like you've never seen. Here's Trump, 2 weeks before the election that he won. The whole thing is a big fix. It's one big fix. The process is rigged. This whole election is being rigged. That's when he thought he was going to lose. Here's Representative Steve King. Folks keep talking about another civil war. One side has about 8 trillion bullets, while the other side doesn't know which bathroom to use.
Yes, we do. Okay.
Here's Trump, June 10th of last year, asked the difference between him and Nixon. He left. I don't leave. Big difference. And Joe, I know you're a different guy now, but here's you on November 2016. You said on November 8th, I'm voting for Trump. On November 9th, if Trump loses, I'm grabbing my musket.
Whoa.
This is the world we're living in. You don't really think that Trump is going to concede. What's the plan? This is my question for Democrats all this year. What is the plan when he says, it's rigged, we found irregularities, I'm hearing, I'm suspending everything, and he's not leaving on January 20th. What do you do?
I genuinely think that he'd make a lot of noise, but he would leave. Because in order to stay, you literally need the military on your side. And the military, if it's a free and fair election, which it will be when I defeat him in November, then the military is not going to circle the White House and say, we're going to keep this guy in. I mean, they're Americans, they're patriots. They'll be like,
he's
hey,
the commander-in-chief.
Bill, he'll leave, but to your point, he's not really going to leave. Because he's going to grab Sean Hannity, he's going to grab his billions of followers, and he's going to cause hell for whoever the next president is. He's going to continue to try to divide things.
But he's going to make noise, but from the outside of the White House.
Absolutely.
That's
fester.
My next question. What happens if he does that? Say you do get him out. I don't think you will, but you tempt the White House and you get him out. It could be worse. Then he's Caesar, camped on the other side of the Rubicon
Absolutely.
with his army. These people who you were 3 years ago with muskets, you hear it all the time. And he's agitating because he's not the kind of guy like most presidents who say, well, I congratulate my successor and I'm not going to speak about issues. You know, that is not who he is.
Well, what does Twitter do? See, this, I put this in a column in the Times, was what happens that right now they keep him and let him stay on there and lie and say whatever he wants because he's a newsworthy figure. What happens the day after the election where he promotes violence? What did they do? And I think that's like a big
Twitter?
question. Do
Right.
they finally throw him off, or do they say he's a newsworthy figure, let him do whatever he wants? That's interesting of how he can, because Twitter has been his modicum of campaigning and now governing. And so I think that's kind of an interesting question of what happens.
John, if he loses in 2020, he could run again in 2024, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, in the 22nd Amendment, sure.
Well,
I think you're right that it's a genuine concern. I think during Watergate, James Schlesinger, the Secretary of Defense, issued an order saying any nuclear order, any military order that comes to the White House, I have to sign off on. So they were worried about the chain of command then. It's not inconceivable. Again, he's president, so we're living in an odd world, to say the least. My sense of the effect he would try to have beyond the White House is there's 34%, 35% of the country that they thought Joe McCarthy was great after he was censured. That Washington Post poll in 1955, 34% approved of Joe McCarthy even after it was all over. 40% of the country never voted for Franklin Roosevelt. They couldn't say his name. They called him that man. But that's 34, 40%. Right now, we're closer to 48, 49. And I think that the big battle has to be finding people who are actually persuadable and making this case. We're never going to get some sort of Valhalla of bipartisanship. We've never had it. We never will.
But we
need a reasonable majority.
We've never been here.
We've never been here before, where the other side doesn't even hear the argument. Did you see Martha McSally? She used to be a fairly moderate by Republican
And not really
stand,
pro-Trump, kind of,
and not really pro-Trump in Arizona. And well, do we have the tape? We can show a reporter from CNN just asked her a reasonable question about there's new information about the impeachment trial. Here's her response.
Senator Sally, should the Senate consider new evidence as part of the impeachment trial? You're a liberal. You're not going to comment, Senator, about this?
You're a liberal hack. I'm not talking to you. That's where we are. I don't know how the other side even hears the argument you're making.
I'm actually really encouraged because I have, let's say, half a dozen events a day in New Hampshire, half a dozen events a day in Iowa. Every single event, someone comes up to me after I'm done speaking and says, I voted for Donald Trump, and this time I'm going to vote for you. And they say it like a secret, but it happens every single time.
But that's at your event.
That's at Andrew's events.
Yeah.
But,
You know.
but Bill, that's why I think it's really important that these sides come together. Someone who, I mean, the people who voted for Trump voted for me.
Right.
Voices on this side need to stand up against him to avoid what you're talking about.
Okay.
And McSally turned that into a campaign ad.
Of course.
To viral fundraiser, because she's behind Mark in
But that's my point. Nobody seems to think there's any value in going toward the center.
It's to John's point. It's what is that number? To me, if you can get that down to, let's call it like the low 40s, then we're going to win by a landslide.
Yeah.
You can't get it down to zero, Bill, but I talk to people, and Joe does too, I sense, that are in that top 41 to 49 range that are looking for an alternative.
Yeah.
They're disappointed in the president. They're seeing what's going on in their communities. And if someone speaks to those problems, then we can win.
And remember, it's a country that in the 32nd constitutional oath, 3 years ago, almost to the day, we went from having Barack Obama as our president to Donald Trump. I mean, it's just a wild swing. We bounce from guardrail to guardrail, so we might get Aristotle next time. Or you.
The opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math.
All right.
This is where the pendulum's swinging, America.
All right, I get it.
It's coming this way.
But just remember my words. You can hate Trump. You can't hate the people who like him.